Yeah. So we're gonna move on. We still in these behavioral characteristics, you feel me? But we're gonna be talking about demonstrating adequate skills, and this refers to the possession and use of skills that are related to being protective. I'm talking about people who can feed, care for, supervise children according to their basic needs. I'm talking about people who can handle, manage, and oversee as related to protectiveness. I'm talking about people who can cook, clean, maintain, guide, and shelter as related to protectiveness. You know what I mean? Because you have to have the skills necessary to adequately provide care for whoever in your care. Whatever kids you got. You know what I mean? You need to be able to cook, you need to be able to clean for their basic needs. Because a child, an infant, is dependent on you, man. They can't feed themselves, they can't cook for themselves. You know what I'm saying? No, they ain't got nobody watching them. They don't know the world. It's your responsibility to have these, to possess these skills. You know what I mean? To provide them with food, with clean clothes, bathe them, make sure that they're going to the dentist, to the doctor. You know, you have to be able to have the adequate skills to establish these things in their lives, man. Yeah, this is a behavior characteristic, and if you don't have these skills in your life to be able to cook, to clean, and oversee, you know what I'm saying, provide for your kids' basic needs, then you need to go and take some parenting classes. And you need to learn these things before you bring any more children. If you already got kids, you need to go and take some parenting class, and you need to learn how to cook, clean, and provide for the basic needs of kids. If you think about bringing kids into the world, how you gonna be grown and you got kids and you don't know how to cook? You know what I'm saying? You crazy. Yeah. So we still in these behavioral characteristics, you know what I'm saying? But we talking about being adaptive as a parent. Now we've gone over a lot of behavioral characteristics, but right now this refers to people who can adjust and make the best of whatever caregiving situation occurs. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to be flexible and adapt to life. Life happens. But what you gonna do? You just gonna stop doing your job as a parent? You just gonna stop providing for your who gonna feed your kids? Who gonna protect your kids? I'm talking about people who accept things and can move on with them, man, and move with them. Like you got to be able to roll with the punches and go. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about people who are creative about caregiving. Remember what we talked about? Like you have to be able to like adapt to whatever the situation is. If there's a problem, you know what I'm saying? Use your mind to come up with a new way of doing things. You know what I'm saying? You may be the trendsetter. You feel me? I'm talking about people who come up with solutions and new ways of being that is new and unfamiliar but more fitting. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. Yeah, so we still with these behavioral characteristics, you know what I'm saying? Because we trying to increase and raise the knowledge of these protective capacities for these parents and caregivers in the world. So what having a history of protecting refers to a person with many experiences and events which he or she has demonstrated clear and reportable evidence of having been protective. You know what I'm saying? Examples might be people who raise kids that's older, got grandkids with no evidence of maltreatment, or they ain't got DCF in their life, they ain't got no abuse report. You know what I mean? This is evidence of them being protective, them providing for the needs, them fulfilling the role of being a caregiver. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about people who have protected their children in demonstrated ways by separating them from danger. You know what I mean? They're not just gonna leave their kids in harm's way to get harmed. No, they seek out assistance from others, or you know what I'm saying, like to get help. You feel me? I'm talking about caregivers and other reliable people who can describe various events. You know what I mean? Experiences of being protective. This is how you will be able to, you know, decide whether or not you have a history of protecting or not. Like you have to be able to say, okay, well I raised my kids grown, they in college, they got good jobs. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about somebody that got, you know what I mean, a rap sheet of abuse reports. You know what I'm saying? That's not a history of being protective. That's a history of being abusive. And what are we trying to do? We trying to raise your protective capacities so you ain't out here abusing your kids, you ain't out here exposing your kids to harm, and so that get played out into society, into the world where we all gotta feel it. So it's very important that you take this job serious because what you put your child through gets played off in their adult lives, and it affects other members in the society. You know, other people that pay taxes like me, So that's why we're here, because we're trying to really, raise the knowledge so that you can be aware of what's at risk. That's right, of what is at risk. That real. Yeah, so finally, we're going to move on to some cognitive characteristics, which are specific intellect, knowledgeable understanding, and perception that results in protective vigilance. Let me read it again. So, cognitive characteristics, I'm talking about specific intellect, knowledge, understanding, and perception that results in protective vigilance. You feel me? Intellect, knowledge, understanding, perception that results in protective vigilance. Is self-aware, is intellectually able. You're able to recognize threats. You recognize child's needs. You have to be able to, use your mind to understand your protective role and plan and articulate a plan for protection. That's right. These are cognitive characteristics. Cognitive characteristics that increases your caregiving capacities. That's right, your caregiving capacities. All right, so first we're going to be talking about the cognitive characteristic of being self-aware. So this refers to sensitivity to one's thinking and actions and their effects on others on the child. Specifically, people who understand the cause and effect relationship between their own actions and results for their children. I'm talking about people who are able to see how what they do plays in the life of their kids, or the lack of. People who are open to who they are, to what they do, and to the effects of what they do. It's one thing to not be aware of how your actions affects other people, let alone your kids. But it's another thing when you know what you're doing and you know how it affects your kids and you choose to do that. See, now it's a problem. I'm talking about people who think about themselves and judge the quality of their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors. You know what I'm saying? People who see that the part of them that is a caregiver is unique and requires different things from them. Because being a caregiver, being a parent, it's a job, people. It's unique. It requires different things from you. It requires you to set aside your own needs to make your kids the top priority. Yes, it requires you to think before you act. It requires you to use your mind, your intellect. It requires you to take action. Being a caregiver is unique. It requires you to do different things. So if you're not able to recognize your role as a caregiver and you gotta be different, you can't be doing the same things that you was doing when you ain't had no kids or when you was a kid. You have to be aware of what you do and how it affects your kids and other people in the community. That's what it means to be self-aware. All right. Still going in on these cognitive characteristics of protective parents to increase the knowledge of caregiving capacity, protective capacities. So you got to be intellectually able. And this refers to information and personal knowledge that is specific to caregiving that is associated with protection. So people who know enough about child development to keep kids safe. You feel me? They're intellectual. People who have information related to what is needed to keep a child safe. You know what I'm saying? Intellectual. They have the ability to acquire knowledge. That means that people who know how to provide basic care, which assures that children who are safe. That means they possess the knowledge, the information, that's related to keeping their kids safe. Like I said, it's one thing to not know, but it's another thing to know. So once you find out what you've been lacking in, and you get the information that's related to what you need to do to keep your kids safe, what you need to do next is change your ways, change your behaviors, change your way of thinking. Yeah, change your way of thinking. We're going to have to get some, yeah, some more, a new way of thinking, a way of perceiving the world around us. That's right. That's right. Because a cognitive characteristic that's very important that you need to possess is the ability to be able to recognize threats. Now, this refers to mental awareness and accuracy about one's surroundings, correct perceptions of what is happening, and the viability of appropriateness of responses to what is real and factual. Now, I'm talking about people who recognize threatening situations in people. I'm not talking about somebody who just gonna, you know what I'm saying, have their kids around like all these domestic situations around it, all these fighting where their kids can get hurt, or they kid having their kids around drug. You got your kids in the drug house, you in the dope house, you in the crack house, and you got your baby right there smoking dope, getting high off the fumes. Like, listen, people, you have to be able to recognize threatening situation in people. You can't just be bringing anybody around your kids. What you gonna bring a pedophile, a rapist around your child? You gonna let a person that got concerns? You know what I mean? Like that's a registered offender. Would you let a registered offender babysit your child? I hope not. Man, listen, you got to be able to recognize these threats. I'm talking about people who are alert to danger about persons in their environment. You got to be aware of what's going on around you. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to be alert to the danger in the environment. Maybe you got to go on the website and see if you have any people that's a registered offender that may be living next door to you. Hey, you know, this is public information. People who are able to distinguish threats to child safety. You have to be able to tell the difference from a safe environment to an unsafe environment. You have to be able to recognize the threat because your responsibility, your job as a caregiver parent is to protect your kids. That's your job. So you can't just have them in any environment or any place that they can get harmed. You feel me? You have to be able to use your mind and recognize the threat that surrounds you to keep your kids safe. Yeah. So still going in on these, cognitive characteristics that's gonna, increase your knowledge of these protective capacities. And right now we just focusing on recognizing the threats because this refers to seeing and understanding a child's capabilities, their temperament, and their needs and limitations correctly. You know what I'm saying? Are you able to see that your child may not be or may not have the ability to do what you want them to do? Are you able to recognize when your child is feeling sad or is feeling sick? Do your child got a routine? Are you able to recognize when your child off the routine? You feel me? Because this is people who know what children of a certain age or with particular characteristics are capable of. You ain't just gonna have, throw your child out there to the wolves if they're a little pup. You know what I mean? You need to know what you listen. I know you want to do whatever you want to do, but sometimes that was for you. Let your child be a child and don't be putting your child in situations that they're not ready for. I'm talking about people who respect uniqueness in others because every child is different. You feel me? People who see a child essentially as the child is, and as others see the child. You know what I'm saying? Not for what you see the child as or what you wanted in your life. No. What do your child like? You know what I'm saying? How do other people see that child? You feel me? I'm talking about people who recognize the child needs, strengths, and limitations. They not here lying to themselves, saying that, oh, I'm gonna have the next pop star. If your child can't even read, are you helping your child read? You know what I'm saying? People who can explain what a child requires, generally for protection and why. You know what I'm saying? Like, do your child got behaviors that you know they bad, or that you know they need their behaviors redirected? You know what I'm saying? Do you tell people about that? That they require this type of redirection, you feel me?